I never thought I would find myself in this position. I'm Jake, a 35-year-old father of two kids, living what I thought was a comfortable life with my wife, Emily. We had been married for 10 years, and honestly, things felt pretty good, at least on the surface. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I always believed we were on the right track. We built our life together, shared dreams, and even had our own little family traditions. But little did I know, everything was about to crumble around me. It started with subtle changes. Emily, who used to be so engaged in our family life, began to come home late from her job as a marketing executive. At first, I thought it was just the demands of her work. She'd come home with these tired eyes, and I'd make dinner while she'd shuffle through her phone, only half listening to me and the kids. I brushed off my growing unease, convincing myself that she was just stressed and needed time to unwind. Then there were the little things. She began to dress differently, tight clothes that felt out of place for our family dinners. I'd catch her putting on makeup before heading to the grocery store, something she'd never done before. I remember one specific instance when she went out for a girls' night with friends. It struck me as odd since she typically preferred to stay in with our kids and me. But again, I reassured myself, she deserves a night out. One day, I got a text from our babysitter, Sarah. It was just a simple question about picking up the kids. But what caught my attention was the way she mentioned Emily in the context of a fun night. I thought it was peculiar, but again, I brushed it off. That was until a few days later when I noticed a pattern. My gut was churning and I couldn't shake this feeling that something was off. The turning point came when I stumbled upon Emily's phone. She left it on the counter while she took a shower. I shouldn't have looked, but the temptation was too strong. I unlocked it, and what I found made my heart drop. Text messages exchanged between Emily and Sarah, filled with flirty emojis and suggestive comments. There was no doubt in my mind. My wife was cheating on me. I felt sick to my stomach, and a whirlwind of emotions crashed over me: anger, betrayal, disbelief. I had always trusted Emily implicitly. How could she do this to our family? When she got out of the shower, I confronted her. I'll never forget the look on her face when I showed her the texts. Shock turned to defiance as she scrambled to come up with excuses. "It's not what it looks like, Jake," she shouted, her voice high-pitched with panic. "We were just joking around." But deep down, I knew it was a lie. I pressed her, and she finally admitted to an affair with our babysitter, claiming it was a mistake. I was devastated. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, was involved with someone so close to our family. The shock of the confrontation rippled through me, leaving me reeling. In that moment, I felt a mixture of rage and helplessness. The woman who promised to be my partner for life had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I went from feeling like a loving husband and father to a man lost in a haze of anger and heartbreak. The emotional toll was immense. I couldn't sleep, eat, or focus on anything else. I questioned every moment of our life together, wondering if it had all been a lie. How could she stand there looking me in the eye and lying? Each day felt like a battle against my own thoughts as I tried to piece together what had happened in our marriage. My kids were my only respite during this chaos. I didn't want them to see me like this, but it was hard to keep the pain from surfacing. I knew I couldn't let this go on. I had to make a decision, and soon. The thought of Emily and Sarah together haunted me, but I needed to think clearly about what this meant for my family. I realized that my priority had to be my children and their future. I never anticipated that I would be in this position, but as the days passed, I began to formulate a plan. I couldn't stay with someone who had betrayed me in such a profound way. I had to take a stand, not just for myself but for the children. I needed to reclaim my life. As I sat there contemplating my next steps, I felt an unwavering sense of resolve. My family deserved better. I wasn't about to let her get away with this, and I wasn't going to let her dictate the terms of our future. I was determined to take back control. The next chapter of my life was about to unfold, and it wouldn't just be about revenge. It was about finding a way to protect my children and create a new, healthier environment for them. I had to think strategically and carefully as I moved forward. In the days following my confrontation with Emily, I felt like a soldier preparing for battle. My heart was heavy with a mix of resentment and sadness. but I knew I had to channel that energy into something productive. I had to focus on my kids and figure out how to navigate this new reality. The thought of Emily and Sarah together haunted me, but my resolve to protect my children kept me grounded. I spent hours thinking about what I wanted for my life and my children's lives. I made a mental list of everything Emily had done wrong, reminding myself of the countless times I had been there. For her, only for her to betray that trust. I wanted to ensure that I wasn't just reacting emotionally. I needed a solid plan. First, I reached out to a divorce attorney I had found online. I met with her at a coffee shop, my hands shaking as I sipped my black coffee. I had never imagined I would be sitting in a place like this, contemplating the dissolution of my marriage. As we discussed custody arrangements and financial implications, I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. I had every right to fight for my children. I would not let Emily's infidelity define my family's future. The attorney explained how custody arrangements worked, emphasizing that courts often favored the parent who could provide the most stable environment. I knew that meant I had to prepare myself emotionally and financially. I had to create an environment where my children could thrive, shielded from the chaos of their mother's choices. In the following days, I began documenting everything. I noted the times Emily had come home late, her spending habits, and even her interactions with Sarah. It felt almost surreal, like I was a detective gathering evidence. I wanted to ensure I had a strong case for custody. Every time I saw Emily's face, the anger bubbled beneath the surface, but I knew I had to keep my cool. I had to be strategic. The day came when I finally decided to talk to my children about what was happening. I approached them carefully, wanting to shield them from the worst of it. I gathered my son, Max, and my daughter, Lily, in the living room. They were both under 10, so I had to choose my words wisely. "Hey guys," I started, trying to keep my voice steady despite the weight of the conversation. "I want to talk to you about something important." Their young faces looked up at me with curiosity, unaware of the storm brewing in our lives. "You know how sometimes things aren't perfect and people make mistakes." Max nodded, his brow furrowed. Lily, always the more sensitive one, looked worried. I took a deep breath. "Well, your mom and I are going through a tough time right now, and it means some changes are coming." The confusion in their eyes broke my heart. I didn't want to scare them, but I also wanted them to understand that I would be there for them no matter what. I assured them that they were loved and that this wasn't their fault. I didn't go into details about the affair, but I made it clear that I would always prioritize their happiness. Over the next few weeks, I continued to gather evidence and prepare my case. I started looking into schools and activities that would help create a stable environment for the kids. I even began to make arrangements for them to stay at my parents' house while I figured out the logistics of our new living situation. My parents were supportive, and having them around gave me strength. During this time, I also had to confront Emily again. I'd noticed she was trying to put on a facade, but the tension was palpable. She'd come home and act as if everything was normal, but I could see through it. I decided to have a sit-down conversation to outline my intentions. "Emily," I said one night while we were both sitting at the kitchen table, the air thick with unspoken words, "we need to talk about the kids and what's going to happen moving forward." She rolled her eyes, a habit I'd come to hate over the years. "Jake, can't we just figure this out later? I don't want to argue." "This isn't an argument," I replied, my voice steady. "This is about the kids. I want to make sure they're okay." She crossed her arms defensively, but I pressed on. "I'm filing for divorce, Emily. I need to put a plan in place for custody. I want the kids to live with me." Her expression shifted from annoyance to disbelief. "You can't be serious. You'd really take them away from their mother." I met her gaze, unwavering. "You've made your choices, and I can't trust you to provide a stable environment anymore. They deserve better than this." Her reaction was immediate. She launched into a tirade, throwing accusations at me about being vindictive and trying to ruin her life. I kept my cool, reminding myself that I was doing this for the kids. I wouldn't let her manipulation sway me. As the days turned into weeks, I felt like a different person. I was no longer just a husband. I was a father fighting for his children's future. Emily's lies and infidelity had pushed me into a role I never anticipated, but it was one I embraced wholeheartedly. The emotional turmoil was exhausting, but I found solace in my kids' laughter and the little moments we shared. I watched them play outside, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was going to make sure they would grow up happy, and I had to remain strong for them. I owed it to them to be the best father I could be, even amidst the chaos of my crumbling marriage. I was determined to forge a path forward, ready to fight for my family in a way I had never had to before. As I continued to navigate this turbulent period, I felt the weight of my decisions bearing down on me. The emotional roller coaster was relentless, with moments of hope interspersed between deep sadness and anger. I had moved from the shock of discovering Emily's betrayal to a place of resolve, but that didn't make the journey any less challenging. The days turned into a blur of meetings with my attorney, discussions with my parents, and countless sleepless nights. I remember one particular evening. When I was trying to get the kids ready for bed, Max was resistant and Lily was clinging to her stuffed animal, clearly sensing the tension in the house. I tucked them in, reading them a story, and I felt a surge of determination wash over me. They deserved a father who would fight for them, who would always be present, no matter the circumstances. I decided it was time to take action. I didn't want to dwell on the heartbreak. I wanted to build a new life for my children. I initiated the divorce proceedings, officially filing the paperwork that would set in motion the new chapter of our lives. I remember the mix of fear and relief I felt as I handed my attorney the documents. It was like shedding a heavy coat that had weighed me down for too long. Emily reacted predictably. She was furious and accusatory, claiming I was ruining our family. "You're being selfish, Jake. You'll regret this," she yelled during one of our interactions. I stood firm, reminding myself that I was doing this for the kids. I couldn't allow her manipulation to sway my decisions any longer. I had to remain focused on what was best for Max and Lily. Every time I saw her, I felt a mix of anger and pity. She had chosen this path, and now she was trying to twist it into a narrative where she was the victim. I would often catch her glancing at her phone, probably texting Sarah, and I felt a deep sense of betrayal. The woman I once loved was now a stranger, and it hurt to see how far we had fallen. One weekend, I took the kids to a nearby park. I wanted to create positive memories, something to counterbalance the chaos at home. As they played on the swings and chased each other around, I felt a momentary peace. Their laughter was infectious, and I found myself smiling, even amidst the backdrop of my crumbling marriage. I pushed them on the swings, feeling the sun warming my back, and for a moment, life felt normal. In the midst of this, I received a text from Emily. "Can we please talk? We need to figure this out." I hesitated before responding. Part of me wanted to ignore her request, but I knew it was important to have a conversation, if only to lay out the terms moving forward. We agreed to meet at a local cafe. As I sat there waiting, I couldn't shake the nervousness. Would she try to manipulate me again? Would she play the victim? When she arrived, I noticed her demeanor was different. Gone was the anger, in its place was a semblance of sadness. "Jake, I'm sorry for how things have been," she started, her voice softer than I expected. "I realize I messed up, and I never wanted things to escalate like this." I looked at her, gauging her sincerity. "Emily, you made choices that hurt our family. This isn't just about you anymore, it's about Max and Lily. They need stability, and I can't trust you to provide that." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know I've made mistakes, but can't we at least try to work together for the kids?" I contemplated her words. Part of me wanted to believe she was sincere, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. "What you did isn't something I can just overlook. I'm moving forward with the divorce, and I want full custody." Her face fell, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But I quickly reminded myself of the reasons behind my decision. I needed to be strong for my children. As we parted ways, I felt a mix of emotions. I had stood my ground, but was I being too harsh? I reminded myself that I was fighting for my kids, and that had to come first. Over the next weeks, my attorney helped me prepare for the custody hearings. I documented everything: Emily's behavior, her spending habits, and the fact that she had betrayed the trust we built as a family. I even reached out to friends and family for support, knowing I would need testimony about my parenting to show I was a dedicated father. The court date loomed closer, and I felt a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. I wanted to stay strong for Max and Lily, but the thought of facing Emily in court was daunting. I kept envisioning her trying to paint me as the bad guy, as if I was the one who had betrayed our family. The night before the hearing, I spent time with the kids, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. We made dinner together and watched a movie, and I found comfort in their laughter. I wanted them to know I was there for them, regardless of what happened the next day. As I tucked them in that night, I felt a surge of determination. I was doing this not just for myself, but for them. I needed to create a safe, stable home where they could flourish. I whispered good night, and as I closed the door to their rooms, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. The next day, I would face Emily in court, and I was ready. I had gathered my evidence, fortified my arguments, and was prepared to fight for my children. No matter the outcome, I was committed to ensuring they had a loving and supportive environment they deserved. I was no longer just a husband. I had transformed into a father determined to reclaim his family's future. The morning of the custody hearing arrived, and I woke up feeling a mix of adrenaline and dread. I had spent the night tossing and turning, replaying the previous weeks in my mind, trying to prepare myself for every possible scenario. As I got dressed, I reminded myself of why I was doing this. My children needed someone to stand up for them, and I would be that person. I dropped Max and Lily off at my parents' house. I wanted them to be away from the chaos and uncertainty of the court proceedings. I hoped my parents could provide them with a sense of normalcy while I dealt with the storm brewing in the courtroom. As I hugged them goodbye, I felt my heart clench. "I'll see you after, okay? I love you both," I said, swallowing back the lump in my throat. The drive to the courthouse felt surreal. I was about to step into a battleground where my family's future would be determined. Arriving at the courthouse, I was hit with a wave of anxiety as I took in the imposing building. I walked inside, my heart pounding, the atmosphere thick with tension. I was early, so I sat in the waiting area trying to calm my nerves. I saw other families, some smiling, others looking distressed, all waiting for their turn in front of the judge. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I was here for Max and Lily. When the time came, my attorney and I were called into the courtroom. Standing before the judge felt like standing in front of an executioner. I took a seat at the plaintiff's table, and across from me sat Emily with her attorney. I could see the defiance in her eyes, but also a hint of fear. Perhaps she realized the gravity of the situation. The proceedings began, and my attorney started laying out our case. She highlighted the timeline of events leading to the divorce, emphasizing Emily's infidelity and how it had impacted the stability of our family. Each word felt like a knife cutting deeper into the fabric of what we had built together. Emily's attorney quickly jumped in, attempting to paint me as an unfit parent. They claimed I was overreacting and using the affair as an excuse to gain custody. I felt my face flush with anger at the audacity of the claims. My life was on the line, and they were trying to twist the narrative. But I held my composure, reminding myself that I was here to fight for my children, not to engage in a battle of emotions. As the hearing progressed, I found myself speaking up more than I had anticipated. The judge asked me questions about my parenting style, my relationship with the children, and how I planned to provide for them. I explained how I had created a stable environment, how my parents were supportive, and how I had taken steps to ensure Max and Lily felt safe and loved. I could see Emily squirming in her seat as I spoke. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, the hurt she had caused our family. I shared anecdotes about our family traditions, things that brought us joy, and how I intended to keep those alive despite the chaos around us. When it was Emily's turn to speak, I braced myself. She put on a show, shedding tears and claiming she was a loving mother who had made a mistake. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness as she spun her tale, making herself out to be the victim. She talked about how she loved our children and how she wanted to be there for them. But it felt hollow, the sincerity of her words lost in the betrayal I had experienced. I glanced at the judge, who seemed unimpressed with her performance. I could see the flicker of skepticism in his eyes as he listened to her excuses. Emily's facade was cracking under the pressure, and it gave me a sense of hope. After hours of testimonies and cross-examinations, the judge called for a recess. I stepped out into the hallway, my heart racing. My attorney approached me with a reassuring smile. "You did well, Jake. Just stay strong during the next part. We're close." As we waited for the judge to return, I couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. What if he didn't see things my way? What if Emily's performance swayed him? I fought against the anxiety creeping in, reminding myself of why I was fighting. Finally, we were called back into the courtroom. My palms were sweaty as I took my seat again, the air heavy with anticipation. The judge began to deliver his ruling. My heart pounded in my chest as he spoke, weighing the evidence presented and the emotional turmoil that had unfolded in front of him. "In matters of custody," he said, his voice steady, "the best interest of the children must always come first." I held my breath, my heart racing. Given the circumstances and the stability presented by the plaintiff, I am inclined to grant primary custody to Mr. Reynolds. A rush of relief washed over me, and I struggled to contain my emotions. My attorney smiled, and I could see Emily's face go pale. The judge continued, "The mother will have visitation rights but must adhere to certain conditions to ensure the children's welfare." I felt a mix of elation and sorrow. I had won, but it was bittersweet knowing the toll this would take on our family. The judge's gavel struck, signaling the end of the hearing, and I walked out of the courtroom feeling lighter, yet burdened by the weight of the road ahead. Outside, I called my parents and shared the news. They were overjoyed, and I felt a swell of gratitude for their support throughout this ordeal. I took a moment to breathe in the fresh air, letting the reality of my victory sink in. I had fought for my children, and I had secured a future for them that I hoped would be filled with love and stability. When I picked up Max and Lily later that day, I could see their innocence shining through. They were excited to see me, their faces lighting up as I walked through the door. I knelt down to their level, wrapping them in a tight embrace. "I have some good news," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "You're going to be living with me full-time from now on." Their eyes widened in surprise and delight, and I felt a warmth spread through me. I had fought for them, and now they would have the chance to thrive in an environment free from the chaos of their mother's choices. As we settled down for dinner that night, I watched my children laugh and play, and I felt a profound sense of peace. The battle wasn't over yet, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I realized that I had learned an important lesson through all of this. Love for your children can drive you to do incredible things. I was determined to be the father they deserved, no matter what. As the weeks passed after the custody ruling, I settled into my new routine as a single father. It was a huge adjustment, but having Max and Lily with me full-time brought me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. Sure, there were challenges. Balancing work, parenting, and managing the logistics of daily life was overwhelming at times, but every moment spent with my kids made it worthwhile. We established a new rhythm together. I signed Max up for soccer and enrolled Lily in a dance class. I wanted them to feel supported and engaged, to know that even amidst the upheaval in their lives, they could find joy in new experiences. Watching them thrive sparked something in me, a sense of hope that I hadn't anticipated. Their laughter became my favorite sound, a reminder of what truly mattered. But being a single parent wasn't without its hurdles. Emily would often reach out, trying to negotiate her visitation schedule and sometimes attempting to play the guilt card. I could feel the tension rise whenever she called, her voice dripping with faux sincerity. "I just want to be part of their lives, Jake," she would say. "Can't we work together?" I had to remind myself of her betrayal each time. I knew I had to set clear boundaries. "Emily, I want what's best for the kids, but you need to understand that your actions have consequences. I'm not going to let you manipulate me." Her reaction was predictable: anger followed by pleading. I stayed firm, reminding her that I would always prioritize our children's well-being. One Friday evening after a long week, I sat on the couch, exhausted but content. Max and Lily were in their rooms, getting ready for bed. I took a moment to reflect on how far I had come. I had faced my demons and fought for my kids, and now we were building a new life together. As I sat there, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "We need to talk. I'm worried about the kids." My heart sank. I had been dreading this. I could feel my frustration boiling up as I read her message. What now? I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation again, but I had to play it cool. "About what?" I typed back, keeping my response short and direct. She replied quickly, "I think they need to see me more often. This arrangement isn't fair." I took a deep breath, reminding myself not to let her derail my progress. "They're happy here, Emily. They need stability right now, not more drama." The exchange escalated, and soon I found myself on the phone with her, both of us raising our voices. I could hear the desperation in her tone as she tried to play the victim once again. "I deserve to be a part of their lives. You can't just cut me out." As I listened to her, I felt a wave of anger wash over me. "You did this to yourself. You chose to cheat and hurt our family. This is about the kids, and I'm not going to let you make this your drama." Silence fell on the other end, and I could hear her breathing heavily, trying to regain control. "You're being unreasonable, Jake." "No, Emily, I'm being a responsible father. You need to understand that I'm not going to let you manipulate this situation anymore." We hung up, but not before I could feel the lingering tension in the air. I knew this wouldn't be the last time we'd clash, but I felt a sense of empowerment in standing up for myself. I was no longer the passive husband who let things slide. I was a father determined to protect his children. That Saturday, I took a break from the tension and planned a family outing. I had promised Max and Lily a trip to the zoo, and I could feel the excitement bubbling inside me. We packed snacks, grabbed our water bottles, and set off for a day filled with adventure. Upon arriving, the children's eyes lit up as they took in the sights and sounds of the bustling zoo. We made our way through the exhibits, watching lions, elephants, and playful monkeys. I felt my heart swell with happiness as I watched them laugh and enjoy each moment. At one point, while we were watching the penguins waddle around, Lily turned to me with a serious expression. "Dad, do you think Mommy is sad?" Her question struck me off guard. I knelt down to her level, searching for the right words. "Sweetheart, sometimes people make choices that hurt others. It's not your fault, and it's okay to feel sad about it. But what's most important is that we are together, and we will always take care of each other." Max chimed in, "Yeah, we have each other." Their innocent enthusiasm melted away the stress of the week. I felt a renewed commitment to ensure they knew they were safe and loved. As the day continued, we laughed and explored, creating memories that I hoped would overshadow the chaos of the past. That evening, as we settled down to watch a movie, I felt grateful for the connection we were building. I realized that despite the difficult circumstances, we were creating our own family unit, one built on resilience and love. Yet, I knew that Emily was still a factor in our lives. I had to prepare for the possibility of future confrontations. I spent time researching co-parenting strategies, seeking advice from forums and resources. I wanted to ensure that no matter how challenging things became, I would stay focused on the well-being of Max and Lily. A few weeks later, I received a call from my attorney. Emily was seeking to modify the visitation arrangement, claiming that the children were struggling without her. I felt my blood boil as I listened to my attorney explain her demands. "She's trying to undermine your custody agreement, Jake. We need to prepare for another hearing." I took a deep breath, feeling a wave of frustration wash over me. I had thought we were moving forward, but here we were, back in the ring. I reminded myself that this was about my children and I had to stay resolute. As the date approached, I found myself preparing emotionally for the battle ahead. I practiced my responses, anticipating Emily's tactics. I was ready to stand my ground again, fueled by the love I had for my kids and the determination to create a stable environment for them. As I tucked Max and Lillian that night, I whispered a silent promise to them. I would always fight for their happiness, no matter the cost. I had learned the hard way that love isn't just about the good times. It's about standing strong when things get tough. and I was more than ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead for the sake of my family. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I felt a familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. I had prepared as thoroughly as I could, but walking into that courtroom again brought back memories of the last time I had been there, an emotional battleground where I fought for my children's future. As I drove to the courthouse, I felt a mixture of nerves and determination. I knew I had to stay focused, not just for myself but for Max and Lily. Arriving at the courthouse, I took a moment to breathe deeply. I reminded myself of what was at stake, my children's happiness and stability. As I walked into the courtroom, I saw Emily already seated with her attorney. She looked tense, her expression tight with determination. We exchanged no words, there was no need for pleasantries. This was a serious matter, and I was ready to defend the life I was building for my kids. The proceedings began, and I could feel the tension in the air. Emily's attorney started by painting a picture of a mother who desperately loved her children, but was being unfairly restricted from seeing them. I listened carefully, aware of every word, and I mentally prepared my counterarguments. I waited patiently for my turn to speak, steeling myself against the emotions that threatened to surface. When I finally took the stand, I felt a surge of adrenaline. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steady. "I appreciate the chance to present my case. I know that the children need both parents in their lives, but they also need stability. Since the custody arrangement was established, they have flourished. I've seen them grow more confident and happy. That's what matters most to me." As I spoke, I could see the judge nodding along, clearly engaged. I continued, sharing anecdotes about their progress, how they had adapted since the ruling, and how I had worked hard to create a nurturing environment. I recounted the activities we had done together, underscoring the joy they had found in their new routine. Emily took the stand after me, and I braced myself for her performance. She spoke about her love for the children, the guilt she felt, and how she believed they were struggling without her. I could see the tears welling in her eyes, her voice trembling with emotion. It was a familiar act, and I felt my heart harden. I couldn't let her manipulate me again. When her attorney pressed her about the affair, Emily tried to deflect, claiming that it was a mistake and that she had learned from it. But the damage had been done, and I knew the judge was weighing her words carefully. I felt a sense of vindication knowing that I had taken a stand for my children, while she continued to play the victim. After hours of testimony, the judge called for a recess. My anxiety peaked as we waited, the silence in the room heavy with anticipation. I could see Emily fidgeting, clearly agitated. I took a moment to collect my thoughts, reminding myself that I had done everything I could to advocate for my kids. When we returned, the atmosphere felt electric. The judge cleared his throat and began to deliver his ruling. "In considering the testimony and the best interests of the children, I have determined that the current custody arrangement will remain in effect. Mr. Reynolds will maintain primary custody, and Ms. Carter will have visitation rights, subject to specific conditions." A rush of relief washed over me. I was overwhelmed by gratitude and emotion. I had fought for my children, and I had secured a future for them that was safe and stable. I could see Emily's face fall, and while part of me felt pity for her, I knew this was the right decision. As the judge concluded and we were dismissed, I stepped out of the courtroom feeling like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had fought this battle for my family, and I had emerged victorious. The journey hadn't been easy, but I knew it had all been worth it. Later that evening, I picked up Max and Lily from my parents. As soon as they saw me, their faces lit up with joy. "Dad, you're home," they shouted, running to hug me. I scooped them up, feeling their little arms wrap around me tightly. In that moment, I felt a sense of completeness. I gathered them on the couch, looking into their innocent eyes. "I have some good news," I said, my heart swelling with happiness. "You're going to stay with me all the time now." Their faces broke into wide smiles, and Max jumped up in excitement. "Yes, that's awesome," Lily squealed with delight, clapping her hands. "We can have movie nights every night." I grinned, feeling a warmth spread through me as I watched their joy. I knew that despite the challenges we had faced, my children would always come first. I was committed to ensuring they felt loved and secure. As we settled down for a movie, I felt a wave of gratitude for the journey I had been on. I had learned so much about love, resilience, and the importance of fighting for what truly matters. I had emerged stronger, and I was determined to create a life filled with joy and stability for Max and Lily. Looking back on everything that had happened, I realized that while Emily's choices had altered the course of our family, they had also reshaped me into a better father. It had forced me to confront my fears and stand up for my children in a way I never imagined I could. As the credits rolled and my kids giggled at the movie, I felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its bumps, but I was ready to face whatever challenges came our way. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. Together, we would create a new family narrative, one built on love and resilience. Our story was just beginning, and I was excited to see where it would take us.